I already made a video showing that the Dungeons & Dragons movie is actually a Pathfinder movie, and in this video I'm going to further prove my case by looking at how the official D&D stat blocks for the characters don't actually portray them very well, and can actually be better represented by making Pathfinder 2nd edition versions of them. I am Ronald, the rules lawyer. I am a teacher as well as a real-life lawyer and an enthusiast for tabletop role-playing games. My preferred system is Pathfinder 2nd edition, and I've also DM'd D&D 5e and some other systems. When promoting the D&D movie that came out earlier this year, Dungeons & Dragons released official stat blocks for the characters in the party that is featured in the movie. And here we see them portrayed as monsters. Well, specifically NPCs. They don't use the character building guidelines of D&D to make these characters, which itself is telling. Now, what level do I want to make these characters in Pathfinder 2nd edition? Well, in some interviews leading up to the movie's release, the creator said that the characters in the movie are no higher than level 4. So I am going to make level 4 Pathfinder characters, with one notable exception. I had a 2-hour stream featuring me and members of the Rules Lawyer server coming up with the character builds that I'll feature today, and you can see them on my Patreon. Also, another Pathfinder YouTube creator, Tabletop Worms, has started a series converting the D&D movie characters to Pathfinder 2nd edition, so we'll be doing some double duty here. It might be fun to compare and contrast our approaches to the same characters. You should go check her out. By the way, there are links to the PDFs of all of the characters we're making in the video description. Now on to the characters. First we start with Doric the Druid, and Swingwhipper, my co-admin at my Discord server, and I decided that this stat block was B tier. The first notable thing is that in the movie she changes into different animal forms multiple times within a minute, and you cannot do that in D&D as a druid. You are limited to doing it 2 times per short rest, and that short rest takes an hour. You have to be 20th level, which I doubt Doric was in the movie, to be able to do what she did. So in the official stat block, they homebrew an ability that lets her change 5 times a day, and I think 5 is the number of times she changes in the movie. Also, you cannot change into an owlbear in D&D if you are a druid, because it is not a beast. And this ability says specifically she can turn into an owlbear. Another thing about Doric in the movie is that we don't see her cast any spells, which is a key feature of druids. They have full spell casting in D&D, just like wizards. So she's given a few spells to cast here on the stat block, but it's not what her character does in the movie. Also, she clearly is part tiefling, obviously, because of the horns coming out of her head. The way this is represented is through the fire damage resistance and through her fiery rebuke ability, which lets her engulf an enemy in flames who damages her. So how do we make her in Pathfinder 2nd edition? First, her base ancestry will be human, and you can graft on the heritage of another ancestry onto that, and in this case it'll be tiefling. That gives her low light vision, and also unlocks the ancestry feats from the tiefling that she can now take in addition to the human feats. For her ancestry feat, she will take the human feat called General Training, which gives her a bonus general feat, and that will be Adopted Ancestry. This reflects her upbringing in an elven community and lets her take elven feats in the future. Druids also get to choose their subclass at level 1. She is going to obviously choose the Wild Order, which gives her 2 focus spells. Focus spells use your focus point pool that you can recharge every 10 minutes. And one spell, Wild Shape, lets her turn into an animal for 1 minute. And if it is the low-level spell called Pest Form, she can be in that form for 10 minutes. The other focus spell she gets is called Wild Morph. She gets to keep her main humanoid form, but gets to grow claws that she can attack enemies with. And as she levels up, she gets to make this spell do more things for her. So clearly, so far, we have a character who is much more representative of what we see in the movie, one who's focused very much on changing shape, and is actually able to do so an unlimited number of times per day under the rules. Meanwhile, changing her animal form several times in a minute, she could have done that by preparing several animal form spells. In this case, 2 second-level preparations of animal form and 1 first-level preparation of pest form. Notably, pest form lets her change into tiny creatures like we saw in the movie, whereas in the 6th edition playtest, they postponed that ability to 10th level. When you level up in Pathfinder, at every even-numbered level, you get to take a class feat. She's not going to take Druid feats. Instead, she is going to forego Druid feats and take an archetype feat. An archetype is a way to do multiclassing or to do a class-neutral theme. In this case, she's going to be a wrestler. This lets her be a more formidable owlbear. When you shape change in Pathfinder, you can still use these feats. The Wrestler Dedication feat lets her become an expert in athletics, which is the skill used to grapple, trip, disarm, and shove a creature. Expert is one level above being trained, and it gives you an extra +2. Also gives her Titan Wrestler, which lets her do those athletic maneuvers against creatures that are 2 size categories larger than she is. This archetype unlocks a feat tree for her under Wrestler, and at level 4, she's going to take Suplex, which, while she's grabbing a creature, lets her strike the creature and knock them prone while doing so. Now that sounds like fun, doesn't it? Lastly, in D&D, she had this ridiculous number of hit points, 104, and it gave her 16 hit dice, which you kind of have to inflate the hit points in D&D in order to make it a higher challenge rating, which is the decision that they made. The math in Pathfinder is tighter, and so they don't really have to inflate the hit point totals as much. Doric has 44 hit points, and you can see the rest of her basic stats here. Next is Edgin, our main character, the bard in the movie, whose stat block Swing Ripper and I assigned to D tier. First, the stat block reflects that he is a bard, and I would say he's not really a D&D bard even, because we never see him cast spells. He does play an instrument at one point, but his main skill clearly is to be very persuasive. His lack of magical abilities and the fact that his character is kind of a scoundrel, but with a heart of gold, made us think that he should be a rogue. But we'll get to that. In the meantime, we see that he has very high skills for persuasion and performance, which is fair given the movie. And this reflects the ability that D&D bards and rogues have of doubling their proficiency bonus through the expertise class feature that then gets added to their skills. He has spells to cast, which we never see in the movie. He has disorienting words and inspiring words, which are bard appropriate and Edgin appropriate. But the fatal flaw is that he's casting spells, which it's kind of not who he is. We found one more problem with this stat block, which I'll get to a little later. So what do we do in Pathfinder 2E? Well, he is clearly a rogue with the Scoundrel Racket. The Racket is your subclass for a rogue, and Scoundrel lets you be focused on charisma instead of dexterity, and it makes you better at feinting, making an enemy off balance so that they are flat-footed to you so you can get that sneak attack damage. What's cool about the Scoundrel is that if you can feint against an enemy successfully, they are flat-footed against you until the end of your next turn. And you can get sneak attack more than one time per turn. There are other rackets like Ruffian, which let you be strength-based. Not all rogues in Pathfinder are shadow-dwelling backstabbers. We thought it made sense for him to have the Bright Lion background. The Bright Lions are in the default campaign setting for Pathfinder 2E. They are a secret revolutionary organization trying to bring down an evil tyrant. So we thought that would be appropriate. He will also have the surprise attack ability as a level 1 rogue, which if he is trying to be deceptive or hiding at the start of combat, every enemy that has not acted yet, when he acts, is flat-footed to him. He will also have many skills. Rogues shine in skills in Pathfinder. Some rogues can have 15 skills at level 1. Obviously, he will be good at thievery, but he has many other skills. And also, he gets to increase the proficiency of his skill every single level. He basically gets twice as many skill increases as well as skill feats as any other character class in the game. One of those skill feats will be Bon Mot, which lets him use diplomacy to spend an action to insult an enemy in combat to make them doubt themselves and get a penalty to perception and their will saving throws until they can insult him back. Another skill feat is Distracting Performance, which lets him, in the middle of an encounter, perform, say with his lute, so that he can help his allies get away from enemies, which is kind of what happens in the movie. Next, as a human, he gets a bonus class feat at level 1, so he gets 2 class feats as a first level rogue. First is Nimble Dodge, which lets him, as a reaction, get an AC bonus against an enemy blow, and Overextending Feint, which lets him use that charisma of his to force an enemy to overreach and be less accurate. and he can do this an unlimited number of times per day. He also will take the Hat of Disguise, a 2nd level magic item. Magic items have levels in Pathfinder, and it gives guidance to GMs on when to make items available, and they have prices, so he can use that with his 4th level character's budget. And starting at 2nd level, he will not take class feats, he would take an archetype, and his archetype will be Dandy. It lets him influence a settlement by sowing rumors among the populace, and also avoid social faux pas. Instead of the ridiculous 110 hit points and low AC that he has in D&D, he's going to have a more reasonable 40 hit points and 21 AC. Next is Holga the Barbarian, and my server and I put her in B tier for her D&D stat block. She has 15 AC and 120 hit points, not much more than Edgin, and she has an athletics of +7. Not that good compared to Edgin's +10 in his skills. This is just how skills work. If you're not a bard or a rogue, your skills are not going to be that high in D&D. She also, even though she's supposed to be a barbarian, does not have rage, which I suppose, because this is a monster stat block that characters are supposed to fight, I guess, they didn't want to give her that resistance to all physical damage. Thought that would be too overpowered, which frankly it kind of is. But they did give her the later barbarian ability of Reckless, which lets her gain advantage on all of her attacks while granting advantage to enemies who are attacking her until her next turn. But she never gets hit in the movie. There's that one scene where she's very badass and they all try to hit her, but she avoids them or shrugs them off. Unlike the other character stat blocks, she has 3 attacks as her multi-attack ability. And she attacks with this Dark Steel Great Axe, which, by the way, gives her resistance against lightning damage. She has Improvised Weapon, which lets her throw potatoes. But look at Dark Steel Great Axe. It gives her 1d12 plus 4 damage, or 10 on average. Edgin, meanwhile, has 17 damage that he can apply with a typical hit. So our Barbarian is doing less damage than the Bard in melee, which I think is strange. That's why we put Edgin's stat block in D tier, by the way. She also can wrestle, and as a bonus action, she can shove a creature within 5 feet. And bonus actions let you do something in addition to your usual attack routine. So what do we do in Pathfinder 2E? Well, first of all, that wrestle ability at the end, she can just try to shove somebody as one of her 3 actions. Every character can do that. There don't need to be bonus actions for you to be able to do more than one typical thing per turn. But we decided that since she doesn't really rage in the movie, that's not really defining to her, that she's just a really good fighter. And being a fighter makes you very accurate with your attacks, makes you very hard to hit, and you're just very good at fighting technique. We thought that's what made sense for her. In Pathfinder, you get to build your fighting style through feats. You don't actually have a subclass that you choose. As a fighter, she has a higher accuracy with her weapons. She's an expert starting at level 1, so she gets a +9 to hit things at level 1. That also means it's more likely for her to critically hit things, because you can critically hit in Pathfinder if your attack roll is 10 higher than the enemy's armor class. She also gets the attack of opportunity reaction, so she can catch people off guard, hit people outside of her own turn, and she also has shield block, which lets her soak damage, which lets her, why are you so unreliable, Windows, with the control key? Lets her soak damage with her shield as a reaction. Her hit points are 56, which still lower than her 5e counterpart, but significantly higher than what her other party members have, which feels right. You can see she has that sweet +13 attack bonus too, compared to the 10 her party members have. She took the 1st level human feat unconventional weaponry, which lets her be proficient with a advanced weapon, in this case the Dwarven War Axe, which has these nice traits that let her grip it 2-handed and do 2d12 damage and sweep through enemies. Now, can she throw potatoes? Yes, she can, but with a -2 item penalty because they would be an improvised weapon. She takes fighter feats. She takes sudden charge at level 1, which lets her spend 2 actions to move her speed up to 2 times and make an attack at the end. She also takes combat grab, which as a follow-up attack lets her hit somebody with a weapon and grapple them with her other hand at the same time. And at level 4, she takes this awesome feat called quick reversal, which, as a follow-up attack, not her first attack, if she's flanked by 2 enemies, she can attack both of them with the same weapon. She has the Every Need pack, which has everything she needs, including potatoes. At level 3, she was able to advance her athletics to expert, giving her a nice plus 12 bonus. She also takes the skill feat Assurance, which gives her a guaranteed result when she uses, in this case, athletics. She always gets an 18, and against weaker enemies, that gives her a guaranteed success, even if she would normally be under the multiple attack penalty. She also takes Powerful Leap, which lets her leap farther. With her 30-foot base speed, she can leap 15 feet with a single action normally, and with Powerful Leap, that becomes 20 feet. At level 3, all fighters get Bravery, which makes them more resistant to fear. So with that cool fighting scene in the movie, she can sudden charge in and strike something, and then strike a second foe with a bonus because it's a sweep weapon. Then as the guards surround her next round, she can swing at one of them and then let go for free, and then do combat grab, hit something and grab them, and then to the side kick somebody else using Assurance Athletics with her 3rd attack. Then round 3, hit a guard, walk between 2 guards so that she's flanked by them, and hit both of them with her last action, which I think reflects her awesome fighting ability in the movie. Next we get Simon the Sorcerer. We gave the stat block a D tier in our server. He clearly is supposed to approximate the wild magic bloodline for the Sorcerer in the player's handbook. He has this wild magic ability. Instead of rolling a 1 on a d20 when he casts a spell, it's when he takes 20 or more damage. But he gets 3 attacks, just as many as Holga. And one of these attacks does more damage than Holga. I guess the martial caster disparity is real. I guess is a good thing to the designers of Wizards of the Coast. It physically pained Swingwhipper to see a strength weapon wielded by a dexterity character, so I think that's why he put it in D tier. Actually, wild magic happens when he rolls a 1 on a d6, so more often than the Sorcerer in the player's handbook. Also, when he rolls a 1, he does not get the spell off. He has this very powerful ability called Sheltering Shield, which gives him and all allies within 10 feet resistance to all damage. He gets to use it as a reaction. Bigby's Hand is a 5th level spell, accessible to 9th level characters and up, so pretty powerful for someone of his level, but it does represent something in the movie. So what do we do in Pathfinder? Well, he is a half-elf, so he takes the human ancestry, and his heritage will be half-elf. That gives him low light vision and unlocks the elf feats, and he's going to take the elf feat Otherworldly Magic to give himself a bonus cantrip. He's going to be a sorcerer, and we have the Imperial Bloodline, which lets him cast arcane spells. You can actually, different bloodlines let you cast different traditions of magic. You can even have cleric-like magic with the sorcerer in Pathfinder. But he's going to do arcane spells, which Imperial matches his character background. Here are its benefits, and it also gives him the bloodline spell Ancestral Memories, which lets him call on ancestors, which lets him be trained in a skill he normally wouldn't be trained in for 1 minute, which is kind of on theme with what happens in the movie. For his spells, we're going to give him Magic Missile and the awesome spell Horizon Thunder Sphere, which lets him cast from anywhere between 2 actions to 2 whole rounds of actions to make an increasingly powerful and large beam of damaging energy. It is the Kamehameha of Pathfinder. Magnetic Attraction lets him attract daggers and coins from people into a single point. Overselling Flourish lets him make a grand spectacle out of getting hit. With sprays of blood and anguished screams, he can distract foes as a reaction. For his archetype, we're going to explain his wild magic from the movie with the Wellspring Mage archetype. This archetype modifies the base spellcasting abilities. You have to be a spontaneous caster like he is. Gives you 1 less spell slot per spell level per day, but every time you enter a stressful situation or when combat starts, you roll a d20 and you have a chance of getting a free spell slot that you have to use within the next minute. And if you don't do it within 1 minute, a Wellspring Surge happens, a wild magic effect. If your roll at the beginning of combat is 5 or lower, you trigger a Wellspring Surge regardless. Here are the different effects. You have to roll a 6 or higher. 4 magic items, he'll take the level 3 Staff of Fire. At level 4, he'll go back to his Sorcerer feats and take Elaborate Flourish that lets him disguise his spellcasting through a performance. For his skill feats at level 2 and level 4, he'll take a Trick magic item, which lets him try to activate an item, and Fleeing Diversion, which helps him get away from a tricky situation. Instead of that ridiculous 99 hit points on a Sorcerer and his AC of 15, which is pretty much what his allies have, he's a little more squishy in Pathfinder 2E with 40 hit points despite his high constitution and his AC of 18, which is lower than 21 that his other more fighty party members have. Next we have Xenk the Paladin. He is clearly much higher level than the party when we encounter him in the D&D movie, and accordingly he is a challenge rating 10 as opposed to 5 in his official stat block. We gave his stat block an A, put it in A tier, because there's some cool abilities here. First, I have to say though that his hit points are not much higher than Edgin's, and his AC of 15 despite wearing half plate is kind of sad. We'll see what happens in Pathfinder in a second. He gives himself and allies within 10 feet advantage on saving throws, which is a paladin ability and also is reflective of his inspiring persona in the movie. He has 3 attacks in his multi-attack. He has a dagger sword, a weapon that can transform between a long sword and a short sword and dagger. Like in the movie, he can launch the sword's blade to hit a creature within 30 feet. He also has this cool ability to lash out with 2 weapons and attack every creature within 10 feet. All of his attacks do radiant damage, which is a nice passive way of expressing Divine Smite of 5e paladins. However, his average damage of 14 or 15 is about equal to Edgin's damage, which I think, again, is weird. I guess the idea was that Edgin was the main character, but that seems kind of against the philosophy the movie was trying to convey, I thought, with Edgin. He also has something like Lay on Hands to heal a creature, but it's only once a day. Alright, so what is he in Pathfinder 2E? Well, Pathfinder's version of the Paladin is called the Champion. There are different subclasses depending on your alignment, at least before Pathfinder's Remaster comes out. The focus of the Champion, at least the good aligned ones, is to defend your allies. And as a lawful good character, our Pathfinder Xenk is a Paladin subclass and has the Retributive Strike reaction, which when an ally within 15 feet of him gets damaged by an enemy, he can prevent some of that damage, and if he's within reach of that enemy, he can do a free attack outside of his own turn. He has a hefty 112 hit points and a superior armor class of 29, and his attack bonus is 17. Also, because he is a high-level champion and he has full plate, he gets that armor special ability, which is to give him resistance to a particular kind of damage. In this case, when he takes slashing damage, he reduces it by 3. Also, he has Lay on Hands, which is a focus spell, which, remember, he can restore his focus points every 10 minutes, so he can cast Lay on Hands every 10 minutes. Now to his class feats. His level 2 feat is Shining Oath, which gives him extra damage when he is doing his reaction against undead. Right now he's getting plus 4 damage. At level 3 he gets Divine Ally, which can be his shield, a weapon, or a steed. And it's going to be his weapon. The Blade Ally lets him endow it in the morning with a special ability, and that special ability will be the Shifting property, which lets it change shape. This is a base rule in Pathfinder. Runes can be transferred from one weapon to the next, and the Shifting property rune lets you change the weapon to any other weapon of the same handedness. In this case, a longsword to a dagger or short sword. Pathfinder's gotcha, if you want to represent a movie character. At 4th level, he takes Aura of Courage, which lets him get affected by fear effects less, and also whenever his turn ends and allies are near him who are frightened, he lowers their frightened condition. At 5th level, he gets another human feat. This will be Clever Improviser, which lets him add his level to every single skill that he's not trained in, as you can see here. So he is very multi-talented. At 6th level, he takes Smite Evil, which lets him spend an action to target an enemy, and his weapon, his Blade Ally, will do extra damage against them for a round, and so long as it's attacking his allies. At 8th level, he takes Sense Evil, which lets him detect strong evil auras. Meanwhile, he's taking skill feats at every even-numbered level. Assurance Athletics lets him get a guaranteed result of 24 at this level without having to roll. Powerful Leap we've already seen. Wall Jump lets him jump up to a wall and then make an immediate other jump as a next action. Water Sprint lets him walk on water limited distances. He'll have a Cassisian Helmet, which is a level 6 helmet. It gives him a +1 bonus on saving throws and AC against evil creatures and effects. And also, once per hour, he can lower the visor and shoot out eye beams. Lastly, as a human, there's a way through a human feat to get a bonus first level class feat. And for him, it will be Deity's Domain. One of the domains of his deity is going to be Travel, which gives him the focus spell Agile Feat. The focus spell he gets from it lets him, for one movement action, ignore difficult terrain, which happens in the movie. So that's it. I hoped with this video to demonstrate that you can accurately portray a character using Pathfinder's character building system, and nearly all these characters were only level 4. The possibilities grow from there. So did you like this video? Did you think we did a good job representing the characters? Do you think we more accurately represented the movie characters than the official stat blocks? Go ahead and leave a comment, like the video, and also subscribe. Also, if you want to see these characters being made in action by me and other people in the server, join the Patreon and watch the stream that we did. Also join our Discord server. We talk about this and other similar nerdy subjects, and Pathfinder 2E, of course. So that's it. I am Ronald, I am the Rules Lawyer, and I'll see you next time.